1-inch drink. Xu Yan's eyes were bloodshot, and the purple origin qis were circulating crazily. As in Emperor cultivation, he could already faintly feel the boundary of the laws of heaven and earth mixed within the origin qi. This law of heaven and earth was the fundamental difference between an emperor cultivation and a monarch emperor. When the laws were added to one's body, no matter how hard one tried, no one would be able to touch them. Nothing could be broken, but in Xiao Yan's place. The vast origin qi seemed to have encountered a tough opponent, and it was actually unable to penetrate even the slightest bit. If the monarch emperor origin qi was as strong as a piece of white paper, then an emperor cultivation origin qi was like a sharp blade. The sharp blade could easily pierce through a piece of white paper, but this piece of white paper in front of him was as strong as a steel plate, making Xu Yan feel powerless for the first time. Holy Beast's blood essence, open. Xu Yan's eyes were wide open with anger. The blood on his left arm was gushing out, and his veins were bulging. The flow of his blood could be clearly seen. Between the flowing blood, there was a trace of dark black blood flowing. It was the diluted blood essence of the profound dark dragon snake. Boom! 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 A sky-shaking sound was heard, like a huge wave, surging towards them. Xu Yan was enduring a tremendous amount of pain. The blood essence in his arm was full of killing intent, leaking out. It was as if the profound dark dragon had come back to life. The aura and pressure of the ancient giant beast came from all directions. The purple origin qi in Xu Yan's palm was surging even more violently as if it was going to collapse the entire world. Once again, it blocked Xiao Yan's attack. The holy beast's blood essence was fully unleashed by Xu Yan, causing Xiao Yan's heart to tremble. This powerlessness wasn't because of the suppression of his qi, but because of the pressure he felt after absorbing the holy beast's blood essence. The cultivation source of the Azure Dragon arts was also taken from the Dark Dragon Flood Dragon, but it could only use its energy to activate the Azure Dragon arts. It was a key function, and Xu Yan had completely refined the holy beast's blood essence into his own energy. With his invisible combat ability, he was caught off guard. The qi and blood in Xiao Yan's chest was boiling, and the power of the Azure Dragon fell from the sky was greatly reduced. Xiao Yan, I told you, I will kill you with my own hands sooner or later. Now, this is the time. Xu Yan roared furiously. His left arm was in so much pain that it was almost numb. His 5 fingers were trembling. If it wasn't for his firm mind, he would have fainted long ago. However, this strike was enough to severely injure a peak emperor cultivation expert. No matter how powerful Xiao Yan was, he could only die with hatred. Buzz! The purple origin qi roared. With the help of the purple spirit lamp, it pushed the power of this attack to its maximum. Wherever the purple qi passed, deep cracks would appear on the ground. The huge rock turned into powder, and the cliff walls cracked. This part of the world was going to be destroyed. The killing intent unleashed by the profound dragon blood essence was awe-inspiring. It destroyed Xiao Yan's mental defense line one after another. This kind of visible killing intent was something that not even the prestige power spell could withstand. Very quickly, Xiao Yan's face turned pale, and his body trembled. It seemed like he would be sent flying at any moment. At that time, he would die. Hey, didn't Li Zan tell you not to be too close to an alchemist? Xiao Yan suddenly opened his eyes wide. His eyes were shining brightly, and a trace of a smile appeared on his face. What? Xu Yan was stunned. He looked at Xiao Yan's calm and terrifying smile, and his mind suddenly twitched. It was as if he had thought of something. Buzz! Xiao Yan narrowed his eyes. Soul energy surged out from between his brows like a surging wave. In an instant, it turned into a sharp soul blade and pierced towards Xu Yan's forehead. Arg! Xu Yan felt a sharp pain in his mind. It was as if thousands of tiny needles had pierced into his brain. He let out a painful roar. The strength in his body instantly dissipated. His eyes were filled with blood. His body swayed as if he was about to fall down. Initially, the violet spirit lamp was protecting his body. In order to kill Xiao Yan, he had used up all of its energy. Although he had used the origin qi armor, he had neglected Xiao Yan's soul energy. Bang! Xiao Yan suddenly leapt forward and threw a punch that was as fast as lightning. It directly shattered the purple qi around Xu Yan's body. The origin qi armor also broke into pieces. The ladder flew backwards and fiercely smashed into the cliff in the distance, penetrating deep into it. Ka! Xiao Yan landed on the ground. Although his face was still pale, his expression was as calm as water. He glanced at the Xiao Ao in the distance and slowly walked over when he saw that the ladder was safe and sound. The suction force in his hand soared and he held Shu Yan's violet spirit lamp in his hand. Under the ladder's despairing eyes, he kept the violet spirit lamp into his storage ring. Xiao Yan. Shu Yan widened his eyes and looked at Xiao Yan outside. Although he was furious in his heart, he did not have the slightest strength to escape from the crack. Immediately, he clenched his teeth and squeezed out 2 words through the gaps between his teeth. Ha ha ha, you have lost. If you didn't have the soul energy, the one inside would definitely be you. Shu Yan swallowed a mouthful of blood and burst into laughter. His eyes were filled with unwillingness, and his heart was bleeding from the pain. Violet Spirit Lamp. That was a mid-grade heavenly weapon. Although it was only a supplementary heavenly weapon, it was still something that could only be found by luck. It was actually taken away by Xiao Yan just like that. Clenching his teeth tightly, Shu Yan couldn't help but curse. Just now, he could clearly feel the weakness of the origin qi in Xiao Yan's body. If he could hold on for a while longer, he would be the one standing outside. Do you think so? Xiao Yan's expression was calm. He glanced at Shu Yan faintly when he heard this. He let out a cold laugh. The 3 types of monarch flames in his body burned at the same time. In the blink of an eye, his strength had broken through to the monarch emperor and reached the emperor cultivation. Let me tell you, I can't even be bothered to take out the monarch flame when I fight you, even though you have really given me a lot of pressure. However, this is the only way. In terms of strength on the surface, what I can display isn't any weaker than you. The terrifying pressure was withdrawn as soon as it was released. Xiao Yan placed a medicine pill into his mouth and said in a cold voice. You. Feeling the terrifying pressure coming from Xiao Yan's body, the unwillingness in Shu Yan's eyes finally turned into helplessness. He fell into the crack on the cliff, and a bitter feeling filled his heart. Also, soul power is also a kind of strength. Even if I use my soul power to fight you, I can still hold my ground for a moment. Trust me, if I don't kill you, Li Xianfeng will find this place. Turning around, Xiao Yan chuckled. His soul power had already far exceeded the complete alien realm. Although he didn't know how much longer it would take for him to reach the mysterious illusionary spirit, he had a strong confidence that his soul power would definitely scare an emperor cultivation warrior. Boom! Shu Yan smashed onto the cliff beside him, venting the anger in his heart. He looked at Xiao Yan's back as he slowly walked away. In the end, he lost. He lost completely. The Xiao Ao was still unconscious. Xiao Yan placed the former on his back. His eyes swept over this place. He had determined the direction and was about to leave when his expression suddenly changed. He leapt a couple of times and arrived at a pile of ruins. He took out his blue flame ruler and sent many large rocks flying. Soon, he saw a person with a dusty face lying on the ground and letting out a painful snort. Wan Laoshan, this old fellow's life is really tough. Xiao Yan laughed softly. He mused for a moment. With a flick of his finger, an iron box appeared in his hand. He took out the dragon beard azure spirit ginseng that was half the size of a palm and threw it down. Wan Laoshan, who was screaming in pain, twitched his nose. He hurriedly picked up the dragon beard azure spirit ginseng and smiled when he saw it. He was smart enough not to raise his head and look at Xiao Yan's face. In this way, even if Li Xianfeng asked, he could pretend that he didn't know anything. After scanning the dark cave with his soul power, Xiao Yan quickly found the qi of Yuan Tongtian and his son. Although their qi was weak, they had only fainted. Xiao Yan didn't have a good impression of them. He stuffed a medicine pill into their mouths and left quickly. Whether they lived or died depended on their luck. Soon, Xiao Yan arrived at the abyss again. The chain bridge was broken for some reason. Xiao Yan cursed in his heart. He held the Xiao Ao in his arms and flapped the wings on his back, flying towards the other side. In the sky above Chaos Blood Cliff, there was a sea of blood that blotted out the sky. An endless stench of blood was being emitted from it. Every drop of blood had the strength to kill a monarch emperor. Waves of blood swept over, covering the sky and covering the earth. It was like a roaring blood dragon that tore through the sky and pierced through the void. The blood shadow stood in the middle of the sea of blood. Its flesh and blood had already been corroded. Dense white bones were revealed, and its joints were glowing with a dark black luster. He had transformed his body into a sea of blood, and his joints were like blades that dripped blood as blades. It was like a killing formation that split the heavens and the earth, and it surrounded Li Xianfeng in layers. The sea of blood surged and raged as it descended. The spreading sea of blood covered this entire area, and a terrifying stench of blood filled the entire capital of chaos. At this moment, all the experts above the Emperor cultivation sensed something. Immediately, numerous gazes swept over, wanting to find out what was going on. It's in the direction of the Chaos Blood Cliff. What exactly happened? On the Heaven Pillar Peak, the Great Elder's expression was solemn. His pair of spiritual eyes could see through tens of thousands of miles away. However, his eyes were completely blood red, and he had no idea what was going on. Chaos Blood Cliff. Sinner's blood. Could it be that he was born? Heaven Surmounting Monarch's expression changed, showing a rare panic. Who is him? The Great Elder's facial expression changed. He only knew a little about the origin of the Chaos Blood Cliff, but he wasn't as clear as Heaven's Surmounting Monarch, who was the protector of the capital of chaos. Sinner's blood. Zhou Tinling. Heaven's Surmounting Monarch was silent for a moment, his eyes were tightly shut, and he raised his head and mumbled. Zhou Tinling? The sacred king of the Azure Sword, Zhou Tinling? The Great Elder raised his brows. Zhou Tinling was one of the most famous supreme saints in the ancient era, so his strength was naturally heaven-defying. However, this kind of reputation meant that he was notorious. He had released the king of the Jiyu Wu clan, causing the entire great world to fall into the hands of the Jiyu Wu clan. As a result, he was crowned as a sinner of the human race. Zhou Tinling was cursed by the curse when he was alive. After he died, he would never be able to have peace for millions of years. After the blood of the Jiyu Wu was sprinkled on the Chaos Blood Cliff, blood would often gather and enter the bodies of the dead, forming a body of sinners' blood. His strength was incomparably powerful, causing harm to the world. Heaven's Surmounting Monarch placed his hands behind his back and looked at the horizon, as if he was trying to see through the void. What kind of curse is it? It can make the Supreme Saint fall for it. The Great Elder was shocked. After breaking through to the Heavenly Sovereign, one would become immune to all kinds of magic. The Supreme Saint body could see through all fabrications and destroy karma. It could actually cause the saint blood to harm the world because of some kind of curse. Barbarian God Curse. Heaven's Surmounting Monarch pursed his lips and spoke in a soft voice. Barbarian God. The Great Elder could not help but take a deep breath when he heard this. It was rumored that the god of berserkers had created the barbarian domain and set up the 4 barbarian generals to manage it. After the god of berserkers fell, one of his eyeballs survived in this world. It was said that this eyeball could see through all lies and falsehoods in the great world. It was even more capable of reversing the sun and moon and devouring mountains and rivers. The strangest of all was the chanting of the god of berserkers. No matter how strong the person who was chanted by the god of barbarian curse was, they would meet with misfortune. This kind of mysterious and unpredictable power naturally shocked countless people. Even during the chaos of the Jiyu Wu, no Jiyu Wu dared to invade the barbarian domain. Helplessly, the barbarian domain was in chaos, and the god of barbarian eye only cursed Zhou Tinling once before disappearing without a trace. This secret treasure that was comparable to a sacred item was now nowhere to be found. Although Zhou Tianling's sinful blood cliff was changed to Chaos Blood Cliff, the curse on his body didn't reduce at all. I didn't expect that after so many years, he would still have the body of sinful blood. Heaven's Surmounting Monarch flicked his sleeve. His sword-like brows slanted upwards. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said, "Great Elder, guess who is fighting him now?" Zhou Tianling's strength has never been matched by anyone since the ancient times. Although so many years have passed, even if it's just a drop of blood, his strength must still be extraordinary. Someone who can fight him must have extraordinary strength. Li Xianfeng, the Great Elder, had a strange expression on his face. Then, his facial expression changed, and he said in a low voice, "Not good, Xiao Yan is still there. It will be bad if this old man finds out about this." After saying that, the origin chi on his palms started moving, as if it was going to tear the space apart. "Great Elder, let me go this time. Li Xianfeng, I also want to see you." Heaven's Surmounting Monarch suddenly stopped him. With a light laugh, he soared into the sky. I need to talk to him about something. After all, this isn't his mercenary alliance. Don't worry, I will bring Xiaoyan back safely. After he finished speaking, he disappeared like a breeze. The first elder sighed softly as he looked at the spot where heaven's surmounting monarch had left. After which, he turned his head and looked in the direction of the inner academy. He muttered to himself, "It's time for us to leave. Before we leave, we still have to deal with some matters as soon as possible." Those two old bastards, where did they go? Boom! A boundless sea of blood swept over. Li Xianfeng was like a light sail that was about to be submerged in a raging sea of blood at any time. He was on the verge of collapsing in the vast sea of blood. Using your body to transform into a sea of blood, the body of sinner's blood. You are no longer the same as before. Even the blood of a supreme saint can't withstand the loss of time. Ignoring the stormy sea of blood, Li Xianfeng stared straight at the body of sinner's blood that was as thin as a skeleton. His voice was cold, but it rang in his ears. Holy arts, void shadow shift. When the waves of blood were about to drown his body, Li Xianfeng suddenly let out a long roar. In the next moment, the boundless origin chi whistled out, and the true holy arts was unleashed in his hand. Buzz! The heaven and earth trembled, and the mountain range shattered. Li Xianfeng stood in the sky, and behind him, a dazzling scene of endless void emerged. At the end of the void, countless blood-red marks flashed past, piercing through the void. It was like a beautiful moment, stunning the world. It was also like a mighty dragon, tearing apart the heaven and earth. Buzz! In the space, the sun, moon, and stars circulated as they were shattered by the blood-red marks. The stars exploded, the comets perished, and countless starlights flew in all directions. The blood-red marks suddenly merged into one, and then they suddenly leapt out from the boundless space behind Li Xianfeng, and enveloped his entire body before vanishing abruptly. Hiss! A majestic sea of blood flowed over. The space shattered and dark red blood seeped out, swallowing the spot where Li Xianfeng had stood earlier. The latter had disappeared on the spot. Swoosh! The body of the sinner's blood suddenly exploded. Hundreds of dark black bones flew out and turned into bone blades that seemed to be able to cut through the sky within the sea of blood. The blade glow scattered and the mountain range below was instantly split into two. Crack! A blood-red mark suddenly flashed through the space, instantly shattering the bone blade in front of it into blood. In the next moment, it was as if there were thousands of marks appearing. In just a moment, the bone blades that caused the space to tremble were all destroyed, flowing into the sea of blood, roaring unceasingly. Sky-severing slaughter! A faint cold shout sounded out from the void. A blood-red mark appeared in the void and suddenly slashed across the head of the sinner's blood body. A slight crisp sound was heard. In the next moment, the roaring sea of blood immediately quieted down. The sinner's blood body that was left with only its head trembled for a moment before it suddenly turned into blood mists that filled the sky and dissipated. The endless sea of blood also dissipated like the wind, leaving not a single trace behind. The blood-red mark flashed across the void. Li Xianfeng's body reappeared and he stood in the void. A corner of the blood python dagger in his hand had cracked. Li Xianfeng looked at the blood mark on his chest and couldn't help but sigh. It had been so many years since he had experienced a life-and-death battle. His assassination skills were unexpectedly not as smooth as before. A comfortable life indeed killed people. Although a corner of the blood python dagger was broken, he didn't panic at all. The former was a heavenly weapon and was full of spirituality. Naturally, it wouldn't be reduced to an ordinary item. It would be refined by profound emperor and its power wouldn't be any weaker than before. This injury. Li Xianfeng frowned when he sensed the strange pain coming from his chest. It had been a long time since he felt the pain. Who? Li Xianfeng sat cross-legged in the void, adjusting the surging origin chi in his body. Boundless origin chi surged out of his body, slowly healing the wound on his chest. Boom! All of a sudden, a starlight flashed past from below, quickly passing by Li Xianfeng's side and rushing towards the horizon. Its speed was so fast that it was like a shining star. 0 inches Xiaoyan? Li Xianfeng slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the direction where the starlight was heading and smiled. A divine light flashed in his eyes. In the next moment, his body disappeared from where he was. His speed was even faster than the starlight's silent step. Swoosh! Xiaoyan's body moved like a bolt of lightning. In an instant, he had already traveled thousands of miles. Seeing that he had left Li Xianfeng far behind, Xiao Yan's nervous mood had yet to relax. Xiao Yan's expression changed quietly. His body, which was rushing forward, forcefully trembled. In the next moment, the space behind him suddenly shattered. A blood-colored dagger cut through the air like a huge python. The top of the dagger was slightly shattered. However, the space that it cut through was shattered in many ways, as if it was going to tear through the world. After narrowly avoiding the sneak attack of the blood python dagger, Xiao Yan's mind raced. Although the Starlight Silent Step had reached the level of the holy arts, with his current strength, he was far from being able to exert its full power. Li Xianfeng's true body had also reached the heavenly sovereign, and he had also comprehended the spatial law. This clone naturally had some understanding of it, let alone the fact that the latter was mainly used for assassination. There were countless profound movement techniques, and if it was just a simple chase, then he would be able to escape. It was only a matter of time before he was caught. Heavenly Monarch Fire Burning Body. Monarch Flame Secret Skill, Path of Reincarnation. Sensing the terrifying chi behind him getting closer and closer, Xiao Yan no longer tried to hide his true strength. The origin chi on his body started burning crazily. All three types of monarch flames were ignited, causing the origin chi in his body to go berserk. In an instant, Xiao Yan's strength had far surpassed the Emperor cultivation, and was even a little stronger than Shu Yan. Swoosh! After his strength had increased tremendously, Xiao Yan's speed became even faster. The starlight underneath his feet surged, causing the void to crack. A vast starry sky emerged from the void. Xiao Yan stood on top of it, 1,000 miles away with every step he took. Interesting. Could it be the holy arts? Li Xianfeng's eyes flashed with a trace of a smile when his attack failed. He couldn't help but praise this young man in his heart. He had heard from Li Zan that this young man had been around for decades. He had actually made such progress in such a short period of time. He had even swept away all the geniuses of the various academies, and had become the #1 person in the younger generation. Compared to Li Zan, he was much more outstanding. The inheritance of the Supreme Saint of Saint Meteorite Mountain. You should have gotten it all, right? Interesting. With a gentle smile, Li Xianfeng's footsteps slowly stopped. In the next moment, an endless killing intent emerged from his eyes. This killing intent instantly pierced through the blue sky, bringing along a cold killing intent that swept across the void, stirring up the wind and clouds. It was as if the cold ice of the 9 cold heavens had suddenly descended. Puff! Xiao Yan, who was advancing at a rapid speed, felt as if he had suffered a heavy blow, and his face suddenly turned pale. He spat out a mouthful of blood uncontrollably. This invisible killing intent seemed to be staring at him from a dark corner. Taking advantage of the moment when he relaxed slightly, he launched a fatal blow. It was like an assassin who didn't make a move. The moment he attacked, it was the moment when the target fell. The killing intent was like a blade, piercing through the sky and the blue sky. 9 blades of killing intent, like furious dragons, slashed down towards Xiao Yan. The strength of the people in the future would not be able to withstand a single attack. Black Tortoise Dragon Armor Spell. Enveloped by killing intent, Xiao Yan's gaze drifted. His entire body trembled due to the cold, and his lips that were dyed red with blood trembled slightly. Suddenly, he raised his head to the sky and let out a long roar. The origin chi in his body seemed to have broken through the ice seal and gushed out. It was like an obscure incantation that came from the ancient times had sounded, and it was covered with cracks that looked like rock walls on Xiao Yan's skin. Buzz! The blade of killing intent slashed down and struck Xiao Yan's back, colliding with the cracks. In the next moment, the blade of killing intent shattered with a loud bang. Xiao Yan's body trembled violently, and then he returned to normal. Buzz! Buzz! 2 consecutive blades of killing intent slashed down and shattered the Black Tortoise Dragon Armor Spell. Xiao Yan, who was among them, flew backwards like a kite with a broken string and ruthlessly smashed into a huge mountain range below. Dust filled the air and rocks rolled down. Xiao Yan, listen carefully. Although this clone only has the strength of a monarch cultivation, it has the laws of a heavenly sovereign. Not to mention that you have just temporarily reached the Emperor cultivation. Even a true monarch cultivation won't be able to break free easily. Don't even think about resisting. Come with me. I have a lot of things I want to talk to you about. Li Xianfeng's voice resounded across the sky. Although he hadn't arrived yet, his voice was still heard. Bang! Xiao Yan's figure suddenly rushed out from the deep mountains after his voice sounded. Without saying another word, he fled into the distance. His body had just moved when the blade of killing intent had already cut through the sky. As the blade descended, the space shattered and Xiao Yan's body quietly shattered. Body transformation pill? You should take out this child's thing as well. It seems like there's nothing you can do about it. Come with me honestly. Li Xianfeng stood in the void. Both of his eyes were closed and his mind was wandering in the void. He was controlling the blade of killing intent. One of the blades was used up by Xiao Yan using the transformation pill. Li Xianfeng only laughed lightly and waved his 5 fingers. The remaining 4 blades of killing intent shattered the heaven and earth. As the killing intent lingered in the air, it had already destroyed the layers of trees below. A figure soared into the sky in a sorry state. It was Xiao Yan. Old thing, this isn't your mercenary alliance. I don't believe that heaven's surmounting monarch will allow you to be so arrogant here. Xiao Yan's hair was disheveled and his tone was cold. He stepped into the void and started walking. The starlight underneath his feet paved a path of stars. It had been so many years, but this was the first time he had been chased by someone like this, but he didn't even have the strength to fight back. A monarch emperor and a monarch cultivation who had the heavenly sovereign law were 2 completely different paths. Before he comes, it's more than enough to capture you. Li Xianfeng didn't deny it. His strength was obvious. He could even go to a great world. Furthermore, he was going to use the capital of chaos as his last resort. Alright, if I have to take off my clothes, I will make your mercenary alliance turn into a river of blood in the future. The pain that came from his body kept numbing Xiao Yan's nerves. Xiao Yan's face was ferocious, and blood was flowing out from all over his body. He let out a furious roar towards the sky. Arrogant bastard, how dare you speak in front of me? Li Xianfeng's facial expression changed suddenly. It was only now that he realized that he had broken away from the original intention of the assassin. Unknowingly, he had spoken so much to this kid. This was a huge taboo in the path of assassination. Swoosh! A thought of heaven and a thought of hell. The speed of his thought was boundless. In an instant, he had caught up with Xiao Yan. The 6th blade of killing intent cut through the void, as if it was going to cut through the sky. A biting cold killing intent filled the sky and earth, making it impossible for anyone to hide from it. Su! The blade of killing intent slashed down, splitting the void. Xiao Yan's body suddenly flashed, and he actually passed through the void and appeared thousands of miles away. This was the effect of the realm traversal jade. Swoosh! Li Xianfeng didn't say anything, but the speed of the blade of killing intent was even faster. In an instant, 2 blades had been slashed down. Xiao Yan's mind was tensed to the extreme. The spiritual energy of the realm traversal jade in his hands surged wildly, and he managed to dodge the first blade without any danger. However, he did not have time to dodge the second slash. A cold killing intent invaded his body. An indescribable pain suddenly spread throughout Xiao Yan's body, and it felt as if his brain was going to explode. He fell down powerlessly. Hu! Li Xianfeng slowly opened his eyes. The wound on his chest had disappeared. He looked in the direction where Xiao Yan had fallen and sneered. He then stepped into the air and flew towards Xiao Yan. He wanted to capture this guy with his own hands. Kai! Xiao Yan lied on the ground in pain. The cold killing intent in his body was like a raging bull. His face was pale, and he couldn't help but roar out in pain. Hong! Xiao Yan's eyes were wide open. His fist smashed down, and a huge rock that was as tall as a man turned into powder. Cold sweat was dripping down from his forehead, and endless dizziness kept rushing into his mind. Oh! Oh! Xiao Yan roared in a deep voice. It was as if his body had been cut into pieces. It was as if he had lost all feeling. Xiao Yan, this is the true killing intent. Refine it. Suddenly, the weak voice of the Xiao Ao sounded in Xiao Yan's mind. This killing intent is the opportunity to cultivate the 3rd style of the Azure Dragon Arts. You must wake up and refine it. Bean-sized beads of sweat flowed into the soil. Xiao Yan punched the ground with his fists. Both of his eyes were red, and all the meridians in his body were trembling. When he heard the words of the Xiao Ao, he immediately let out a fierce roar. He bit his lips until they were rotten, and blood was dripping out. He sat up in pain, and because of the unusual changes in his body, his skin began to crack apart inch by inch. It spread across his entire body like a crack, and fresh blood flowed out. In an instant, he was dyed in blood, and it was terrifying and hideous. The azure sky was vast, with mountains surrounding it. The towering mountains seemed to have been split apart, and the cliffs were smooth. The mountain forests within were all reduced to dust, and the killing intent of the blade was enough to split open mountains and split open the earth. The blood-red killing intent in his body surged and crashed into his limbs and bones, continuously bombarding his meridians. The pain that came out caused Xiao Yan to clench his teeth, and sweat had already soaked his tattered clothes. Wah! The 9 origin chains shook violently, and the origin chi on the chains roared. It transformed into a huge origin chi hand, and was about to grab the killing intent in his hand. Puff! Xiao Yan's body swayed, and blood gushed out from his mouth once again. A strange red color was added to his pale face. His body was on the verge of collapse, as if he was going to fall down at any moment. However, in his eyes, but there is an indescribable determination. This was the mentality that he had experienced after countless difficulties. He was like an ancient godly monarch who had shed blood, with a blood-stained aura. Within Xiao Yan's body, the Xiaoao helplessly looked at the blood-red killing intent that rampaged around. His injuries were severe, and he was powerless to deal with this killing intent. He could only watch helplessly as the latter flowed within Xiao Yan's body without restraint, destroying all the vitality within his body. Yi! The Xiao Yi stood beside the Xiaoao, and its tender face was filled with anxiety. It was holding the Xiaoao's hand as if it was crying. I have no other choice. After activating the heavenly monarch fire-burning body with 3 monarch flame, Xiao Yan doesn't have enough origin chis to activate the monarch flame. Your control over the 3 types of monarch flames is so weak right now. If something goes wrong when you go out, you will cause Xiao Yan to die. Rubbing the Xiao Yi's small head, the Xiaoao dejectedly said, Now, it's all up to Xiao Yan. We can't help him. The Xiao Yi nodded as if it understood. It let out a sad cry and sat down. Ah! Veins bulged on Xiao Yan's neck as he endured an unimaginable pain. It was as if the skeleton within his body was about to be sliced apart by this killing intent. The origin chi hand formed by the 9 origin chis might have grabbed it, but it was difficult to refine it after a long time. The killing intent that spread out was about to completely cut off all the life within his body. Swoosh! A sharp killing intent landed on the origin chi's large hand. The sound of metal colliding echoed out, shaking Xiao Yan's body like a flood dragon. Xiao Yan's chi and blood were churning. The majestic origin chi in his origin monarch crystal roared out, crazily suppressing this killing intent. The killing intent was awe-inspiring. Every chi contained the heavenly sovereign law, and they were fighting against the origin chi that was fused with yin and yang. For a moment, the 2 of them were evenly matched. Buzz! Xiao Yan sat cross-legged on the ground. The chi and blood in his body were rolling like thunder. His entire body was bathed in blood. The majestic origin chi emerged, causing a bright light to shine around his body. A pair of bright red eyes emerged, and a powerful soul force spread out from the top of his head, covering the entire mountain range. He was observing Li Xianfeng's tracks. Yin and Yang merge, 10,000 spiritual voices. Suddenly, these 2 words suddenly emerged in Xiao Yan's mind. Like a clap of thunder, it resounded in his mind. Vaguely, it was as if he had gained some understanding of what the great elder had said in the past. The potential hidden within the origin chi. Xiao Yan's heart trembled. In an instant, he came to a sudden realization. His yin-yang origin chi was now strong enough to resist the killing intent that contained the heavenly sovereign laws. This potential was really strong. Ah! Xiao Yan raised his head and let out a long roar. The joints on his body exploded, and the blood scars on his body exploded all of a sudden. His entire body was glowing with a bright light, like a divine light. A vast aura rushed out from the top of his head and swept across the sky. It swept across the clouds and dust, and with a furious roar, the mountain collapsed. His dragon-like aura soared into the sky and shattered the void. Boom! Boundless yin-yang origin chi swept over, swallowing the killing intent completely. It sounded like the sound of immortal music. A brand new life force gushed out from his body, and in an instant, an unparalleled energy filled all of his limbs and bones. Swoosh! In the next moment, the void in the sky quietly shattered. The last blade of killing intent slashed down from the sky. The cold killing intent made people feel as if they had fallen into the 9 hells. The killing intent was like an ocean that swept across the sky. Xiao Yan was like an ant that could capsize at any time. Spiritual light surged in Xiao Yan's eyes. His blood and qi were like a sea, and his energy was like a mountain. He had seen through the opportunity of the origin qi merging yin and yang. Every single origin qi was like a waterfall. It was incomparably vigorous, and it was enough to shatter a mountain. Holy arts, azure dragon slaying firmament. Xiao Yan did not dodge. Instead, he took big steps forward, facing the blade of killing intent. His entire body glowed with a bright light, as if a god had descended. As the boundless origin qi whistled, Xiao Yan's body turned into a dragon. The green dragon scales emitted a golden light, and his battle intent was high. Another holy arts. Li Xianfeng was hiding in the void. When he saw Xiao Yan's earth-shattering attack, he couldn't help but feel shocked and angry. Even an emperor cultivation would consume a huge amount of origin qi to cast the holy arts, so how could this brat use it again and again? First, it was the saint movement technique, and now, it was the holy arts. His body had turned into a green dragon, and he even had a slight feeling that it could shake the heavens. Who cares if you are a dragon or a worm? It will only take a breath's time to suppress you. Li Xianfeng's expression was gloomy. He was hiding in the void, playing with the blood python dagger in his hand. The heavenly sovereign law was circulating in his eyes, trying to find the flaw that Xiao Yan had exposed. He wanted to kill Xiao Yan with a single strike. This kind of talent and ability was enough to fight against many young geniuses who had yet to become saints. Boom! The color of the sky changed. Unlike the Starlight Silent Step, the Azure Dragon Sky Slash was an attack-type holy arts. No matter if it was a supreme saint, a holy item, a holy weapon, or a holy skill, as long as it was touched by the word saint, it would be a synonym of invincibility. Ka! The Azure Dragon roared as it moved its dragon tail, causing the space to crack. Its huge dragon body blocked the blade of killing intent. Light emerged from the green dragon scales, making it impossible for the blade of killing intent to penetrate its body. The origin qi that was integrated with yin and yang swept over, trying to forcefully refine the blade of killing intent. What happened over there? Could it be a life-and-death battle between monarch cultivation sovereign? This is the vital energy of the holy arts. Could it be that the holy arts has emerged in the chaos blood cliff? The capital of chaos once again shook. All the experts who had sensed it moved, wanting to find out what was going on. If the holy arts really appeared, it would definitely cause a world-shaking battle. Those old monsters who had never appeared before would not be able to hold themselves back and attack. In Yunluo Academy, Qi Bai and Qi Bai were standing behind the Great Elder, looking into the distance with shocked expressions on their faces. This feeling was really the qi of the holy arts. Is it the body of the sinner's blood? The Great Elder was surprised and bewildered. The holy arts had shocked the heavens and earth. Even in the ancient times, the holy arts had attracted countless people's covetous eyes, let alone in this era where all saints had fallen. Even he had only mastered 2 kinds of saint skills, and the rest were just the monarch arts. Let's go and take a look. The Great Elder waved his sleeve and made a prompt decision. After which, he and the Qi Bai brothers quietly left the academy. The appearance of the holy arts would surely alarm countless powers and bring countless dangers and opportunities to the capital of chaos. It was unknown what the Yunluo Academy would do in this place. On this day, a beam of light shot out from an ancient vein that stretched for hundreds of thousands of miles in the capital of chaos. Without alerting anyone, it flew towards the capital of chaos at a speed that could cover tens of thousands of miles in a blink of an eye. In the far east of Green Lotus Sword Sect, a green heavy sword emerged from a top-secret forbidden area. A green figure stepped on the air and appeared in front of them. It was a lotus flower with a nice fragrance, but if one looked closely, they would find that every lotus flower was engraved with a deadly sword technique, which was unusually cold. Sect Master. Under the shocked expressions of the few supreme elders, the green figure stepped on the heavy sword, and little duo disappeared in the midst of blooming. At the same time, numerous beams of spiritual light shot up into the sky from the numerous profound sects and prefectures, and all of them were heading towards the capital of chaos. The holy arts had shocked the heavens and the earth. Too, on top of the collapsed mountain range, Xiaoyan was carrying a green dragon on his back. The green scales on his back were glowing with a golden light, and the origin chi in his dragon eyes was surging. His blood was boiling, and the roar of a dragon shook the heavens. The roar echoed for thousands of miles. This holy arts of slaughter, which was known for its fierceness, had revealed its most powerful side at this moment. This kid is really skilled in combat. He didn't even reveal a single flaw in his attack. Seeing that the blade of killing intent was about to be refined by the rolling origin chi, Li Xianfeng couldn't help but feel shocked in his heart. Even heavenly sovereign warriors wouldn't be able to take care of the flaws in their attacks. However, Xiaoyan's attacks were swift and fierce. One attack after another was as smooth as flowing water, without a single flaw. He was like a supreme expert who had gone through hundreds of battles. Swoosh! The heavenly sovereign's eye opened from afar. Li Xianfeng's chi shrank to the extreme and merged with the void. The great law flowed in his eyes as he looked at the azure dragon in the void. The blood python dagger in his hand was flashing with a cold light, waiting for a fatal strike. It has appeared. The moment the killing intent blade was refined, Xiaoyan couldn't help but feel relieved. His state of mind changed slightly. At this moment, Li Xianfeng had noticed it. He immediately followed him like a shadow and shattered the void like a ghost. The blood python dagger suddenly arrived like a hidden python. Hiss! The hairs on Xiaoyan's back stood on end. As the azure dragon roared furiously, its dragon tail suddenly swept across the sky. Its enormous body was already flying towards the sky. Its entire body was bathed in golden light, and streams of auspicious energy flowed around it. It was like the tune of an immortal music, and it was extremely shocking. Roar! The blood-red dagger sliced through the void, and it left a ferocious trail of blood. It was like a gangrene attached to a bone, and it silently penetrated into the golden light protecting the azure dragon's body. Suddenly, it broke through the green dragon scales, and left a few wounds on the azure dragon's body. As soon as the wounds appeared, golden dragon blood instantly flowed out. Every drop of dragon blood seemed to be able to crush the sky, and it was extremely heavy. Su! The dragon's body trembled and disappeared. A human figure rushed out from the dragon's body. It was Xiaoyan. At this moment, the latter's face was as pale as paper. There were 3 shocking bloody scars on his abdomen. The bloody scars were faintly black. Clearly, his body was poisoned. You can't even exert the power of the holy arts, yet you still want to use it. The void in the distance trembled slightly. Li Xianfeng took a step forward and spoke in a calm voice. The blood python dagger returned to his hand, and his blood and chi flowed in all directions. Xiaoyan glared at him. The bloody wound on his lower abdomen seemed to have the effect of devouring the origin chi. The origin chi in his body was rapidly flowing away. A trace of powerlessness instantly surged into his heart. His vigorous blood and chi had weakened a little. Although the 100,000 feet bright light from the bath was still bright, it was no longer as vigorous as before. Now, let's see where you can run to. Li Xianfeng slowly raised his head. A fierce look flashed across his eyes. He flicked his 5 fingers and the blood python dagger broke through the void. It was like a 10,000 feet long blood python, pressing down on him like a mountain. Boom! Xiaoyan clenched his teeth. A cold glint overflowed from his eyes. His feet suddenly stomped on the void and leapt up. He clenched his right hand tightly and a huge scarlet golden ruler appeared in the sky. Flames flashed across the surface of the ruler. Crimson gold and blue flames circulated and attached themselves to it. All the remaining origin chis within his body gathered on his right arm. The blue flame ruler struck down the instant the huge blood python pounced over. Buzz! The huge ruler carried a force of 10,000 layers. It seemed to have broken through the heavens and earth one after another. Fierce winds howled, and the clouds were torn apart. Endless force gathered on it, and flames curled around it, burning the void and directly hitting the head of the blood python. Boom! The huge ruler seemed to have hit an incomparably hard rock. Xiaoyan's 5 fingers trembled, and the blue flame ruler seemed to be on the verge of being crushed. Blood flowed from his palm, and his entire arm was faintly numb. Ow! The head of the blood python was struck by Xiao Yan's all-out attack. 3 types of monarch flames quickly coiled around it. The terrifying temperature suddenly rose, as if it was going to burn the air. In an instant, a surging blood chi surged. The blood python howled in pain, and its huge body fell to the ground. As the blood chi in its body dissipated, its body continued to shrink. Puff! Xiao Yan was also struck by the tremendous force. Like a shooting star, he fell down. The 3 bloody marks on his lower abdomen continuously devoured the origin chi in his body. After hitting the blood python with all his strength, Xiao Yan felt dizzy and powerless. Su! The blood python turned into a dagger and returned to Li Xianfeng's hand. It held the dagger in its hand. Li Xianfeng couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air and quickly pulled his hand back. Upon closer inspection, the dagger was covered with sparks. The dagger was so hot that even he didn't dare to touch it. On the back of the dagger, there were actually some indentations. Clearly, it had been hit by Xiao Yan's foot. Monarch flame. Killing intent surged in Li Xianfeng's eyes. He waved his sleeve and kept the blood python dagger into his storage ring. He appeared in the sky with large strides and looked at the mountain range below. The origin chi within his body whistled. A bright golden origin chains shot out from his back and rushed into the mountain range. Woo! Xiao Yan was lying in the ruins. He no longer had any energy left in his body. The pain from his lower abdomen had started to erode his meridians. The terrifying poison had spread throughout his entire body. Xiao Yan raised his head and looked over. The huge origin chains had shattered the sky, and it was like a golden chain that could cut through the sky. The origin chi on top of it was like a dragon, and it was roaring ferociously. It carried a world-destroying aura, and the aura that emerged from it shook the entire world. This chain contained the heavenly sovereign law, and even an ordinary monarch cultivation could be easily killed by it. An endless coldness emerged in Xiao Yan's eyes, but his mind was unusually calm. The terrifying chi suppressed him, but it didn't affect him at all. A red light appeared in his eyes, and he was about to spurt out his blood essence to strengthen himself and use the Buddha Fury Fire Lotus. Boom! A huge golden chain slashed down from the sky, shattering the heaven and earth. It pointed straight at Xiao Yan, and the sound of metal clashing could be heard without an end. It was like the drum of a divine king from the 9 heavens, resounding through the clouds. Kai! Suddenly, a slender palm extended from the space and grabbed the chain, which was as powerful as thunder, in his hand. No matter how the origin chi on it roared furiously, it was unable to move at all. Seeing that the roaring sound of the chain had suddenly stopped, Xiao Yan, who was about to fight to the death, focused his eyes. He looked up and saw an old man in a green robe appearing from the spatial zone. The old man had a calm expression. It was Heaven's surmounting monarch. Li Xianfeng, this is capital of chaos. You have created such a big commotion for a junior, attracting too many people's attention. This isn't a good thing for you. Give me some face and leave now. Heaven's surmounting monarch's 5 fingers shook, and the roaring origin chi disappeared. Then, he tossed the huge chain into the distant sky, as if he were abandoning grass. After a long time, Li Xianfeng's cold voice came from the void. Heaven's surmounting monarch, aren't you afraid that I will suddenly kill you? Of course I'm afraid. You are a heavenly sovereign, and this clone has the heavenly sovereign law, so it will be easy for you to deal with me. However, I'm sure you won't dare. Ni Xuankang sent you here to strengthen the mercenary alliance, not to seek death. Heaven's surmounting monarch looked calm and relaxed. His back was straight like a pine tree, standing proudly in the void. HMPH, I can spare your life. This kid has killed 4 Emperor cultivation from my mercenary alliance and stole my realm traversal jade. How can I just let this matter rest? The void trembled. Li Xianfeng's voice came from afar, and no one knew where it came from. Alliance Master Li, don't laugh anymore. You aren't a child either. The most common thing in Capital of Chaos is to kill and seize treasures. Heaven's surmounting monarch sighed. He turned his eyes and looked at Xiao Yan, who was unable to move in the mountain range. When he saw the 3 shocking bloody marks on Xiao Yan's abdomen, his calm expression finally changed. Well said. Since that is the case, it is understandable for me to kill him. After being silent for a moment, Li Xianfeng's cold laughter was once again transmitted from the void. It was like a ghost that was drifting about. Alliance Master Li, this little guy is the most outstanding man in Yunluo Academy. If he was killed by the poison of your blood python, that old bastard Lao Yuans won't let this matter go easily. Heaven's surmounting monarch's eyes lit up, and his voice suddenly became fierce. Ha ha ha. Could it be that the holy arts really appeared? It actually attracted Heaven's surmounting monarch here? Alright, let me have some fun too. Without waiting for Li Xianfeng to speak, a clear and loud roar suddenly sounded out. In the next moment, a bright light suddenly arrived, and the light faded away. Then, an energetic gray-clothed old man with a youthful complexion slowly appeared. The old man's name was Guo Yanlong. He was the master of Myriad Spirit Mansion. He hadn't shown himself for dozens of years. Today, he was attracted by the qi emitted by the holy arts and rushed over without hesitation.